It is, of course, as usual, facebook.com/thefeedsbs. If you haven't liked it already, do that. All right, we are going to pay some bills, but stick around because after the break, we've got this. Transplant tourism. Are there Australians buying stolen organs in China? All the details after the break, right across Australia. This is The Feed. Welcome back. You are watching The Feed. State-sanctioned organ harvesting. It sounds like the stuff of horror movies, but it may, many, including the US government, believe that it is happening right now. They say that there are persistent and credible reports that the Chinese government is harvesting organs from prisoners, driven by a transplant tourism industry that is worth, they say, billions of dollars. The documentary Hard to Believe delves into the horrifying practice, which it claims mainly targets members of the Chinese spiritual discipline Falun Gong. The Chinese government set out to eliminate the Falun Gong movement back in the 90s with massive street arrests, but in 2006, allegations surfaced that prisoners, along with other persecuted groups like Uyghurs and Christians and Tibetans, were being harvested for organs against their will.
And they became this just vast sea of expendable humanity.
The documentary interviews medical professionals, US officials, and covers author Ethan Gutmann's 7-year investigation into the industry. Gutmann believes as many as 100,000 transplants are happening each year in China, of which Beijing will only admit to 10,000.
As quick as possible, remove a liver and a kidney.
The Chinese government has previously admitted taking organs from death row prisoners, but say the practice was stopped in January 2015. And joining me now is Ethan Gutmann. He is a human rights investigator specialising in organ harvesting. His book, The Slaughter, details allegations of continued organ harvesting from political prisoners in China. And according to Ethan, the number of people being used in these operations is much bigger than originally believed. He's in Australia this week for a special screening of Hard to Believe, a documentary about the shocking practice. Now, Ethan, firstly, welcome to the show, but also China say they've stopped this practice. Do you believe them?
Well, they say one thing to the Western press, but what's interesting is that when they're talking to the Chinese press, they say something completely different.
All right, so talk to me practically here, because a lot of people watching this will have no concept of how it works. How did they go about extracting these organs from people?
Well, China has done something very specific, which is that they use live organ harvesting. So that's why it isn't just a case of taking one kidney out of a starving farmer or something like that, and then he pays some bills with it. This is a case where you take a living human being, you take out their kidneys, their liver, you take out their heart, you take out their lungs, you take out pretty much anything you can sell.
And what's left over?
Corneas. Well, in some cases, a bag of intestines. I'm sorry to put that forward, but that image, but that is the case.
In terms of how they go about rounding up people, before you get to that stage where they're taking things out, how does that work? Where are they harvesting the people from in the first place?
Right. Well, that's changed over time because originally it was just prisoners. It was hardcore criminals, rapists, murderers, drug dealers. And over the 90s, it starts to become a little more political prisoners. The Uyghurs, the Muslims of China. In fact, they're
Tibetans as well, apparently.
Yeah, and they're the first ones. The Uyghurs are definitely the first ones who get harvested for the organs. That is actual political prisoners. And there's a big distinction. These are people who haven't committed a crime. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but most of them have just gone out and demonstrated in the street.
Is there any evidence that Australians are, as tourists, going over to China and collecting these organs, being transplanted over there?
Right now, it's considered a matter of medical confidentiality.
But what do you think?
Oh, I think certainly some are. And frankly, when you have an aging and wealthy population, this is the kind of people China wants coming in. I mean, one of the hospitals in our new report advertised directly to foreign populations. They've advertised in English.
Do you think people going over are aware that if they're going over, they're going for cheap surgery, they're going to come back with something they can't afford at home? Do you think they're aware of where those organs are coming from?
I don't think they want to think about it.
Right.
I mean, really, honestly, and who does? We're not going to learn that much about organ tourism from the organ tourists themselves.
Let's say, hypothetically, you're in charge.
Yeah.
What would you like to see Australia do in order to stop their citizens going over and taking these organs?
It's really not that. I have a template. I don't have to wave a magic wand here because Israel was the first country to do this. They banned organ tourism from China, organ tourism to China. They were followed by Spain. And then by Taiwan just this year. Well, very impressive for Taiwan. They're under tremendous pressure from the Chinese. The fact is, every one of these people has to come back and receive aftercare. They have to receive anti-rejection drugs. They will have to receive them for the rest of their lives. So it is very easy to control it. And frankly, Israel found that they didn't really need to go that far in terms of any punitive measures. They found that once they kind of made it clear that this wasn't supposed to happen, people stopped going.
All right, Ethan Gutmann, thank you so much for your time. His book, The Slaughter, is out now. And ladies and gentlemen,